It's the first time in my life that I have ever gone to a march with so many people there was no room to march. and people were calling me from Nairobi, from Berlin, from, all over the world. And I think it's a combination now of technology so we can communicate. But the good news is it's not only technology. People are willing to go there with their bodies. They understand that. And I'm so relieved to know that it doesn't impede human contact. In fact, it facilitates human contact.
And what does that activism and that marching or standing together as one, what does that breed? What does that facilitate?
Well, it's reversing hierarchy. I mean, normally we're supposed to look up at El Exagente up there and do what we're told. But if we look at each other, it's very different. And especially because we now have the most dangerous president of the United States I have ever encountered in my lifetime. And I believe the rest of the world recognizes the danger too. It's very important that we really act democratically and empower from the bottom up.
Is there another female leader who you could see coming from either party to be a presidential candidate going forward?
Oh, yes, there are tons. I mean, there are more than we know.
Can you name some who you think might be leading lights?
I just said, Senator Gillibrand would make a fine president. There have been, many in the past. Bella Abzug would have, but, it's... There are people emerging all the time, but it's not only about the president.
Yeah.
It is about exercising the muscle of self-government and self-decision making from the bottom up. And I think we, as social justice movements, have been deficient, for instance, in paying attention to state legislatures and lower levels of government, which have been kind of taken over by big business because they regulate business. And that's our fault. We have to look at that and begin from the bottom up.
You talked at the beginning about how you had people calling you from Africa, from Berlin. What about the rest of the world? How are they viewing the United States at the moment, do you think?
Well, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but
what
I get back is a sense of connectedness and intimacy, which means both they're very worried about what's happening in this country, very fearful. I have not been contacted by anybody who thought it was a good thing so far. Maybe somebody, but I don't know who it is. So there's a sense of connectedness. And of course, there are problems that are not so dissimilar in India, say, with the Hindu fundamentalist in power, or in parts of Europe where the ultra-right wing is. So we are struggling in many of the same ways, but the difference is, here's the difference. There is a majority now that wasn't there before. Now, this is what has frightened them, too, because they're not, the old majority doesn't rule anymore. But it is also heartening that there is a majority that is concerned about the environment, that, doesn't want to divide people up by race and religion, that,
But not enough of that majority came to the polls or came to vote. Is that something that you feel you can act on?
No, yes, they did. I mean, 10 million Americans voted for somebody other than Trump. And we have this archaic electoral college, which is left over from the slavery era, because it was the slave states that wanted it.
So should that be changed?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if we're going to be looking from the now standpoint, you sound in many ways optimistic and in many ways pessimistic. What do you feel in terms of the next 4 years?
I'm certainly not going to be pessimistic, because that means you're defeated for openers. I'm going to be skeptical, because it's important to use our energies well. But hope is a form of planning.